yesterday.
And then Mr. Carroll, I guess, I just got to mention this before you have a chance to testify and you can address it. But staff found a couple of quotes from you about punching, I guess it was the speaker, square in the head. And the mass deportations will be swift, but they will be deadly. And I'm concerned about those kinds of comments. Now, you'll have a chance to speak to those things.
Chairman Higgins, Ranking Member Correa, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Ivey, and the members of the subcommittee, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the evil of child trafficking caused by the open border policies under President Joe Biden and his administration. I served in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years until I retired as a Deputy Patrol Agent in charge in San Diego sector. I worked under 5 presidential administrations, and only one president secured the border, President Donald Trump. Border Patrol agents went from working and being supported by the greatest border president in American history to the worst, President Joe Biden. My last year in the Border Patrol was Joe Biden's first year in office. On his first day in office, I watched in disbelief as 94 executive orders cascaded down from Washington, D.C., obliterating every immigration policy that had been provided the most secure border in America's history. Border Patrol agents were forced to carry out unconstitutional orders that violated every law in the Immigration Nationality Act. President Biden, through Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, created policy out of thin air, ignored federal immigration law, and facilitated the largest mass invasion into America that the world has ever seen. The United States of America will have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in 4 years to fund the needs of over 50 million illegal aliens that populate our nation. Between 1 in 6 and 1 in 7 residents in America is an illegal alien. America has suffered the greatest demographic shift in modern history. After serving in the United States Border Patrol for 24 years, spending a year researching and writing a best-selling book entitled Invaded, The Intentional Destruction of the American Immigration System, and filming 2 documentaries, I state with complete certainty that Biden, Harris, and Mayorkas intentionally, strategically, and purposely weaponized illegal immigration and used it as a tool to fundamentally transform America. Inside this invasion, the unspoken evil of child trafficking, and more specifically, child sex trafficking, has flourished. At the end of this current administration, the number of children trafficked will have grown to over 550,000 unaccompanied alien children known as UACs. This horrific number of children will have been arrested, released into America, and then lost. To put this into context, during President Trump's last year in office, Customs and Border Protection arrested 30,557 UACs who were accounted for and not lost. Conversely, in the first year of Biden's presidency, CBP arrested 147,975 UACs, most of which are unaccompanied for and lost. In 2023, Congressional Hearings Health and Human Services Javier Becerra and Director of Office of Refugee Resettlement Robin Marcos forced to admit that their agency had no contact with over 85,000 UACs. They were lost. What did DHS, HHS, and ORR do to correct this humanitarian disaster? Nothing. In fact, all 3 agencies created further policies and procedures to increase the efficiency of moving UACs from the border to the interior of the United States to unknown and unvetted sponsors. Unaccompanied alien children were being handed off to total strangers. Then they disappeared into the darkness of labor and sex trafficking. In fact, a year later in August of 2024, the Inspector General with oversight over DHS issued a report stating the number lost UACs was not 85,000, it was over 320,000. My business partner, Ryan Matt, and I spent 6 months traveling across America, filming a documentary titled, What is Treason Trafficked? The evil of child sex trafficking is difficult to digest and understand. However, after conducting numerous interviews with officers, agents, and whistleblowers from every alphabet agency and department, it was made clear to us that the federal government knowingly and actively facilitated these criminal acts. After several exhaustive months of filming, interviewing, and then editing this documentary, I state without reservation that the United States federal government is the world's largest child sex trafficking organization in modern history. The probability that thousands of these UACs are being raped at this very moment is 100%. The call to action has 3 parts, my call to action, and they're swift, and they happen at the same time. Every means necessary is to be taken to ensure all 4 borders of the United States of America are sealed shut. 2, there's a national law enforcement emergency to locate and rescue every single one of the 550,000 unaccompanied alien children that are lost. 3, a full-scale investigation of every U.S. department, agency, and every NGO participating in this criminal act shall be launched, and every person involved shall be arrested. Finally, the intentional opening of our borders is an act of treason. I encourage questions, so I may further articulate this allegation. Thank you.
So, Mr. Carroll, we're hearing some amazing things today. Children being sacrificed to harvest organs. Of course, somebody said they don't, Mr. Ivey said he's not so sure about that. You got the amazing 8-year-old with sexually transmitted diseases, 12-year-old 9 months pregnant. My colleagues on the minority are very concerned, though, about your language. What do you think of that?
I find it fascinating and interesting that after hearing about all this testimony, and right now, thousands of children are being raped, that's just statistical probability, 100%. Children are being murdered, and I'm going to quote President Trump when he said, a lot of these children are already dead, end quote. What I find fascinating is all of this that we got to talk about, all this tragedy that we're dealing with. And we want to talk about what I said about Speaker Johnson in a podcast that I don't even remember. I think maybe it goes back to the congressman. Would he like to ask me a question that has any relevance to helping secure these children? And then you go back further, sir. The reason why we are in this position is because we destroyed the border, not just the southern border, the northern border, and both coastlines. This is a tragedy, and it is treason, because this is not bad policy or bad mistakes or somebody's incompetent. This is intentional. So when you do intentional acts against your nation, that is treason. And I'll be glad to talk about Speaker Johnson and him funding NGOs to the hilt. I would love to talk about that as well.
Mr. Carroll, you made an allegation about organ harvesting as well. Are you saying that's taking place in the United States or somewhere else?
In my documentary, I interviewed multiple people.
Please give me the quick answer.
Yes, it's happening in America, and to deny that is...
I'm not asking you to deny it, but have any charges been brought against anyone for doing that?
I don't know that right now, sir.
Okay, and then you mentioned that as your 3 parts of your solution, every single one of the 550,000 unaccompanied children should be identified. After they are identified, what's the next step in the process that would happen there? What happens to those kids after we identify them?
We make sure they're safe.
In what way? What do you have in mind?
I don't understand the question. By what way? I don't understand.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Flashback.
The experts they brought in said, you know what, there's not enough evidence to impeach. That was for President Biden. The same is true for Mayorkas today. And the evidence that we presented with the witness, but also from letters that were written in by experts who said it's just not there. And not only that, it goes against what the founders wanted in the Constitution. They didn't want people being replaced. The James Madison quote was maladministration, bad policy. You don't replace people for that. You replace them for high crimes and misdemeanors.
Has he done a good job?
I think he's done a good job under very difficult circumstances. And, you know, one of the points that we've been making is...
You've seen the numbers, Congressman. Border crossings, 1.7 million, 2021. That's up, by about 30%, 40% to last year to 2.4 million.
End of flashback.
And I'll say this as well. I think that one of the things that we really need to do is make sure that well, I'll say it this way. I read in the testimony 2 statements, well, multiple statements actually, about the harvesting of organs from children. And that was news to me. When I looked for footnotes and references and citations to support those claims, I didn't see them.
What planet are you on?
America, Earth.
America, no, I'm not laughing now.
I'm not laughing.
So I'll say you'll have a chance to testify about those when your time comes, but those are very serious allegations. And to the extent that that's actually taking place, I would strongly support the effort to energize the Department of Justice, the FBI, to the extent I know I've got some colleagues that want to defund them, but
I think he's done a good job under very difficult circumstances.
I encourage questions.